You can see right here, it definitely has a leak around all of these areas. The valve cover gasket. So this video is going to be about how to replace a valve cover gasket on a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. You can see signs of oil seeping all the way around the seam of the valve cover. Pretty much all the way around. Pull up on the tab to release this sensor. Use pliers to press both tabs from the sides and then pull back to remove. Use a 10mm socket to remove the bolts for the ignition coils. Pull the ignition coils out and carefully set them off to the side. Squeeze the hose clamp and pull on it to remove it. To remove this sensor, push up from the tab on the bottom side and then pull out. Do the same thing to the next sensor, which is a few inches away from the other one. Squeeze the hose clamp with some pliers to remove it and then tuck it so that it's out of the way. I'm using a zip tie to remove the clip for the other sensor, so you loop it underneath, put it in the hole, and then pull towards you to release the back tab, and then I press the front tab with a flathead screwdriver so that the whole thing will release. There are 12 of these bolts, and then there's 2 right here. There's the other one. So you have to remove all of those next. All of the bolts around the valve cover and the 2 in the center that I pointed out are also 10mm. You might have to pry around the edge just a little bit with a flathead screwdriver, but be really careful that you don't damage this plastic valve cover. Then once that's loose, you can lift up on it and move it out of the way. Then you remove this black rubber gasket that goes all the way around, very carefully so that nothing falls inside here. I bought this new kit at an auto repair place. It comes with the spark plug seals and the valve cover gasket. So that's what I'm going to install. Make sure to pull this off and this off before you put the other one on. Here's a close-up. That rubber piece and that rubber piece. Clean the surface really well where the new gasket's going to go, because you want it to be really clean so that nothing can cause more leaks. As you are using a razor blade or a towel or anything else to clean off the surface, remember to wipe away from the opening of the engine so that none of that is falling inside. You want it to fall away from the opening. Because my valve cover gasket was leaking around pretty much the entire area, I had to clean quite a bit to make sure the surface was clean enough to put the next gasket on. I have gone through and cleaned around the perimeter of where the valve cover gasket goes, because you want that to be really clean. And then, like I said before, just be careful that you don't let anything fall inside. Now you want to clean around the edge of this really well also, because that's where the top of the gasket goes. After cleaning the valve cover, the next step is to replace the spark plug tube seals. And as I went to do mine, I'll show you what happened. This is what happened when I tried to take off the tube seals. You can see it was just really brittle, and the heat over time pretty much baked the tube seals into the plastic, and so it was impossible for me to get everything out. So I actually had to order a new valve cover online because I couldn't get one fast enough from a dealership because they had to order it in from out of state. When I ordered the new valve cover, it came with the spark plug tube seals and the valve cover gasket already installed. Make sure that this gasket is pressed in all the way around, that there's no areas that are sticking up, and then make sure that the tube seals are pressed all the way down where the spark plugs go. The two arrows are going to show where the seam is between the metal, so you want to put rubber gasket maker on those two seams before you put the valve cover gasket down. Right here, there's a little seam, and also back here, there's a little seam. And so I got this, you just put a little dab of this before you put the valve cover back on. Press the new valve cover down and you will feel a slight little snap or a movement downwards when it seats properly. I put all of the bolts back in by hand first to make sure that nothing is getting cross-threaded. When you put these bolts back in, you want to do about 4.3 foot-pounds of torque on all of them for the first round. And you want to start with the ones in the center of the valve cover and then kind of move out to the side. So that's what I'm going to do next. With the 10mm socket, I'm screwing the bolts all the way down, but I'm not tightening them yet. Then I set my torque wrench to 7 pounds and start again in the same pattern, starting towards the center of the valve cover and then moving away to the outsides. This is what the valve cover bolts are supposed to look like. This is what the first bolt looked like after I tightened it down. It sheared off and got stuck, so I had to extract it and go get a new bolt. So don't do that because it causes a lot more work. The torque wrench clicks when you get to 7 pounds, so that's how you know that it's tightened to the correct torque specs. Take the wire for this sensor and press it into the groove to hold it into place, and then click the sensor into where it goes on the back side. Click the other two sensors back into place that are on the opposite side of the engine. Then reconnect both hoses and make sure that the hose clamps are tight. That one goes right there. This one goes here. These two sensors plug in. And the sensor back here plugs in. That one's tight now. Make sure that this one's tight over here. And now you're ready to put the ignition coils back in. This clip goes back in here, snap it in. Get these cleaned off really well. Put those back in. And you can put your 10mm bolts back in to hold them down. I like to get all these started with my fingers first so that nothing gets cross-threaded. So I make sure that they go in a couple spins with my fingers and then I go in with the 10mm. Now you can put the engine cover back on, and you have to look at these two spots right here, and they will line up with the spots on the cover that look like this. So line these up right here. And you'll hear them pop on once they're seated. Then you put the dipstick back in here. And you start everything up. Make sure it's all good.